already joined us. And I want to also acknowledge this lovely lady, Dr. Kuiljeit, who is with us online, whom you will soon hear from personally. She's already online. And it's so lovely to connect with all of you from around the world. So welcome. So for my keynote today, what I really want to talk around the theme. So the theme being reinvent yourself to being limitless. Wow. What a big vision. When you think of that title, how does it make you feel? It makes you feel strong. It makes you feel like a giant. But let's start with the basics. I have one simple question to ask each and every one of you. Who are you? I want you to ask yourself that question. Think, reflect. Who am I as a person, as a human being? Who am I? Now, when you think about who you are, there are two different dimensions that come into play. This is very basic, but I need to emphasize. One is who you are in terms of your self-image, and the other is who you are in terms of your external image, how others perceive you. I'll give you an example. I know of this young teenage girl who is a little bit introvert. You know what introvert means? A little bit closed up. But she had a massive desire for friends, to make friends. She wanted to have a better social life. Because she knows that the world is about people. People before process and profit. It's about people. How can I increase my social relationships? So what happened was, to her self-image was, I want friends and therefore I can find friends easily. That was her self-interpretation, her desire. But what she was projecting is other people. She was not very successful in finding friends because other people, to others, they thought, you know what? She's not a very friendly person. She's not a very friendly girl. She's not approachable. So now this is where you find the disconnection between how you see yourself and what you're actually projecting. Now, if I was to ask you from an effectiveness perspective, is it important in terms of how others perceive you as well, in terms of what you're projecting to the world? Absolutely, absolutely. But to what extent do we give it that importance? To what extent are we knowledgeable about how to apply science to develop this image that will work for you? Very important. Hence, today is such an imperative discussion because we are here as women in business. We are here as female professionals from around the world in whatever professions we are doing. We are global participants here to understand how can we yield our personal image and project it for success. So there are two things. How do I perceive myself and how do others perceive me? Now, moving along, what I'd like to say is a very important statistic I came across, a research piece that said, on average, a human being generates 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts a day. On average, all of us generate 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts a day. And on average, we generate about 2,500 to 3,300 thoughts per hour. Now that is what you're dealing with. The clutter in the world, the clutter in the mind. That's what you're competing with. The marketplace is not out there, it's in the mind. It's from here to here. Very significant. So my question to you is, in that context, how then do we stand out and influence people and business. If I was to talk to you about my own story at Women Empowered Global, I first announced it in 2017, embarked on it early 2018 in January itself, and in a span of 2.5, 3 years, radically, dynamically, consistently have been expanding. And with this energy to date, we have presence and a network reach in across 23 countries worldwide. Now, if I was to tell you about my position, the key things that I had to manifest as the spokesperson, as the personal brand for Women Empowered Global, which is a global engine accountable for women's careers around the world. If I was to tell you some personal brand attributes that I had to look into, number one, the fact that we are a multicultural organization that values diversity. Again, I had to represent that as the spokesperson and the personal brand identity of Women Empowered Global, that I'm welcoming, that I'm caring, that I'm compassionate, that I'm reliable, that I'm consistent. Very important. So I had a very huge role to play in the expansion, in the growth, in the vitality and the vibrations that we were making around the world. Why? Because of my persona, my personal brand, amidst the clutter in the global space. Now, with that said, I want to remind you, ladies, that whether we realize it or not, we live in a massively brand conscious world. When you wake up in the morning and you get out of your bed and on your way to work, you have easily interacted with 10 to 15 different brands. The mattress you sleep on is branded. The toothbrush you use is branded. The toothpaste you use is branded. The hairbrush you use to comb probably came out from a retail store. It's branded. The clothes you wear has a label on it. It's branded. The shoes you wear to work, branded. The vehicle you move in is branded. Easily 10 to 15 brands you've already interacted with within the first 3 hours of your day, of starting your day. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is why it is so important to realize and emphasize the value and significance of what the persona and the personal image can do for you and for the world. So what I want to tell you is a little bit of an example. How many of us like to go to the mall? I know I do. I love going to the mall. It's so exciting. When I think about going to the mall, goodness, I have endorphins releasing inside of me. I'm so excited. Why? Because the minute I go into a mall, I think, oh wow, I have choice. I have a plethora of options. It's so exciting. It's so attractive. I have different brands I can select, different brands I can choose. So though it's a consumer's heaven to go to a mall because of the amount of choices we have, it is a marketer's nightmare, right? Because of choice. Now get this. If there is choice, what comes next? Competition. Wherever there is a choice, there is competition. You're competing for with someone else. The minute there's competition, what's required? Strategy. And the minute there's strategy, you do need the personal brand. You can't make any mistake about it. If you want to distinct yourself in the marketplace, if you want to be unique, if you want to be the preferred choice, then it is all about building and understanding and learning how to build your individual personal brand. And with that said, it's my absolute honor to invite to speak to you Dr. Kuiljeit Uppaal, who is not only the first world's image scientist, a phenomenal lady, a phenomenal mother. She's a fabulous human being, very knowledgeable. She's multifaceted, multi-talented, but she's also a global partner in our Global Partner Network, and she's also a soul sister. I admire her and I value her. And with that said, I'm very excited for her session next. Dr. Kuiljeit, it's my absolute privilege to invite you to take over.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Senela. It's an absolute delight to be here amidst a wonderful gathering of brilliant women. I can see wonderful faces, beautiful smiles. So I'm so happy. And what a great opening. Thank you, Venya, for that great introduction. And thank you, Senela. You already shared a few things that you preempted me in one way. So that's great. You set a base for the session ahead. So I'm very happy here. Firstly, because I think Women Empowered has come in a very, very big way, and we've been associated for a while not even associated, we've been soul sisters for a while. So I have seen this whole journey of yours, and I'm telling you, kudos to you, girl. Seriously, you've really gone a long way. And I'm so happy because Women Empowered has really made its mark, and you're there pretty much on all the 5 continents. So fantastic, really, really fantastic work. So hello to everyone. And I think before I start sharing the supposed knowledge base, I just want to tell everybody that I want to keep this session a little informal, because I know we're all in a different space and a different aura, keeping in mind the pandemic now. We're all at home and we're probably more chilled out. So we're probably going to have a little more chilled out, interaction with all of you. I want to first share something about me. I think just for the fact that probably there are some new faces who may not have known me as much. So just a little thing about, who I am really. So you already know my name. Both Venya and Senela have mentioned it, but I'll say it one more time, just for pronunciation's sake, because I know the beauty of languages across the world. Every time there's someone who pronounces your name in such a beautiful manner, but it's slightly different from what the authentic version is. So I'm Dr. Kuiljeit Uppaal, and yes, I'm from India, and I'm currently speaking to all of you from Pune, from the beautiful city of Pune, which is also called the Harvard of the East. And this is a huge education hub as far as India is concerned. So it's a very cosmopolitan city, and it invites people from all over the world to come and study on various dynamics. So it's a beautiful city. Okay, about me, yes, I have done a few things in life, and I'm very happy that many people who probably are today part of this webinar are professionals and have spanned across various areas. Some may not have spanned various areas. They may be sticking with one, which is fine. I can see Senela smiling away, because I think the first session that you heard me was about multipotentialites, right? Okay, so that's for some other day, I guess. But okay, so I have spanned across about 5 odd industries. I was very fond of flying, so I became a pilot. That was my starting point in terms of wanting to do something. So from aviation to advertising, and then media and IT and education and research, I've kind of been spanning around, and I'm very happy that I've been doing that, because it's been fulfilling my heart and my dream. And I think that's very happy when you realize that the inner core is happy. Your inner self is very happy. We'll talk about that as we move along. But having done that, so yes, I've done my PhD in this subject, and that's why, by virtue of having done that, I'm the world's first image scientist. And the good thing is I've also got a few things as I've been moving along in research. What I'm going to do is probably just share my screen for a minute and just run past a few things that probably might just about 4 or 5 slides quickly to tell you more about me. I'm just an ordinary person with extraordinary dreams. That's about it. And I think somewhere down, I have built myself to always keep that extraordinary part of me alive. And that's why whatever I do, I'm just always wanting to explore more. So I'm a huge explorer of sorts, huge learner, huge explorer, still learning. So let me just share my screen for a minute, and it'll probably help to just run past a couple of slides, like I said. So here we are. Okay, so as you can see, this is of course today's session. And so I have brought to the world the first ever PIQ, which is persona and image quotient. And we've all heard of IQ and EQ, but I think probably many of us may not be aware of this. So this has been all based out of my scientific testing, and very, very driven out of empirical testing and validity and reliability. And for people who know what research is all about, they'll understand what I'm saying, but it's taken many, many years to generate something like that. So this is my first gift to the world as an image scientist, to be able to actually assess where you stand in terms of your persona and your image. So it's a quotient, it's a test, which is now from manual mode, I've converted into a web app. And in fact, my team has been working very hard on that. And now we're like ready to launch it and let every person in the world who is on the World Wide Web actually access it. And that's a good starting point because you understand where you stand. The good thing is in this whole exercise of discovering the real you in terms of your persona and image, you will go past all of those 6 elements, which are the core parts of your persona and image management, and you will get a detailed report of sorts. So it's a great starting point, at least to assess where are your areas of improvement. And I think we all need to know that. We may think we are bang on, which I think we are, but regardless, we always want to keep getting better, don't we? So that's one thing. Another great news that I want to share with all of you is that despite the fact that over the years, I have contributed to the creation of several hundred books in education area, right from aviation and travel and tourism, hospitality, IT, and personality development, customer service, and what have you, all of that. But there's always a soft corner when you bring out your first subject out there in a written mode. So this is for everybody again. My first ever book on my subject, persona and image management, which I lovingly called PRIM, because it, you know that English phrase, right? Prim and proper. Not that it really means that, but it's a good acronym to remember. It's a good recall value. So that book is coming out in August, which for all Indians is a very special month because that is commemorates our Independence Day. So August is when this book gets launched, and it's a great pickup. I'm not saying it because I have written it, but it's a great pickup only because it's a ready reckoner of sorts. Anybody who wants to kind of get, on that journey to get better will probably love doing this. Another thing that I want to tell all of you is, thanks to the Corona crisis, I think all of us have got so proactive in terms of how we want to kind of move ahead. So from live and in-person seminars, I've moved into more webinars and now online courses. So I remember for many years, many people, whether it was from the US or from Israel or UK, many countries, in fact, they would keep telling me, why don't you do an online course? Because we're sitting so far off. We can't be there in person all the while, to attend your seminars. So I think it's good news for all the people who are across the globe now that I have now decided to go ahead with the online courses, which again would come out in August, wherein you will have both types. One is an intense, absolute, full amalgamation of everything to do with persona and image management in the PRIM series. And of course, smaller modules, smaller structures, which will just create impact. It could be like, how do you make a great impact or a visual impact through your clothing? That's an impact booster. Or how do you get your videos right? Or, how do you make sure you get your elevator pitch? Or how do you ensure that you use your tonality correctly? Small little impact booster courses, which might just help people, whether they are working professionals, whether they're regardless. It's all going to help them to create powerful impacts. I'm looking forward to that. Another thing that I did as part of my, let's say, scientific research was this outcome that I came up with, Premier, which is PRIM using expressive arts. For the fact that I'm myself a huge, huge fan as well as a practitioner of sorts in terms of expressive arts like singing, dancing, theater, drawing, painting, and all of the expressive arts one can think of. So what I've come up is with this scientific angle again of Premier, wherein this particular slide that you're all seeing is a session that I did with an international audience where I taught them Bollywood dance, which is, something that we have in India. If any of you have ever seen some Bollywood films, you would know what I'm talking about. And that session was like brilliant because there were people who came in with issues in terms of their spirit, in terms of stress, in terms of feeling low, etc., etc. And in a 45-minute, there was a clean swap, and they had a different energy all to it. It was not just about dancing, it's about how you deal with it. So I do a lot of work with people who are like, let's say, cancer patients who are undergoing chemotherapy and are going past huge self-esteem issues. And, so I do a lot of engagements on various kinds of expressive arts with people who need more hand-holding. And of course, for all of you, before we get into our mode, I guess if any of you believe that in this, whatever, half an hour, 1 hour, or whatever we have, you are suddenly going to be, so wise and you will know all of PRIM. I'm sorry to say that's not going to happen. It's a good start. It takes much more than that. I would request, if you need to really kind of keep the journey going, then do follow me up on all my social media handles. You have it right here. The good thing is it's the same name. Of course, do watch out for the spelling. And you can find me, you can follow me on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, as well as on YouTube. So here we are, and I think now is the time where I shall now not share the screen anymore and move on to the topic. Okay. So now that you know who I am and whatever I've done, let me just share this journey now in terms of the PhD, because I think it'll have some relevance to what I'm going to share with you. Now, having spanned across all of those industries that I mentioned, the fact of the matter is that somewhere down the line, in my last corporate job with a company called Aptech Limited, I realized that there was something that was beginning to, kind of nag me. And that was the denominator that I found across the industries that I had spanned. That common denominator was that when a person would come for an interview, for example, or for a meeting, whatever be the case, and come in front of a board or a number of people in front of them, this person would be short on communication skills, on how to present, even what to wear correctly, on esteem issues, on confidence issues, and a whole gamut of things. Now, as a person who was at that point in time taking care of the academics and the entire angle of creating, generating content and training and all of that, I think for me, it was an organic movement that I said, let me do something about this, because this is not a one or two case. It is like it's running across industries and it's running across n number of people. And that's when I decided that let me step into research, because I've always believed that when you're an educator, you need to ensure that you're not into a copy paste. Unfortunately, today that seems to be the trend with due respect to everybody, but I think there's a lot of copy pasting that happens across, and people become educators and share information. And then there are people also who go by whims and fancies and share information. So I just felt, and this is my personal belief, that when you are an educator, you should ensure that whatever you deliver has a scientific bent of mind, has been driven at least by a science to it, and is empirically tested. So that's how research happened for me, and so late in life. It's funny, they always say what happens in life happens twice, once in the mind and once in reality. And I never thought that 19-year-old Kuiljeit at some point in time who said that before I turn half a century, I should have a prefix to my name. And that actually happened. I mean, it's just funny, but it's beautiful. And I think that happens. I'm sure some of you resonate with that thought that I just shared. So anyway, so here I was, and I was researching, and I realized that as I went along, and I met hundreds of image consultants who were around, right from the Western Hemisphere to the Eastern Hemisphere. And I realized something very interesting that happened as I spoke to them. If there was a person who came from a fashion background, inherently that person seemed to focus a lot on fashion and styling and clothing and all of that in dealing with his clients. If there was somebody who was a beautician, she would probably deal more with makeup and skincare and hair care, and so on and so forth. So I realized that at some point in time, there was no parity in terms of what was being actually shared with the consumer. So that made my resolve even stronger to make sure that I go to ground zero. Since there was no academic work done on it, I started from ground zero and started building the science of persona and image management. And having done that, of course, I was heavily into psychology, sociology, anthropology, semiotics, design, fashion, statistics, mathematics, and what have you. Everything that you can think of, including communication, of course. And that's when I started building my mathematical models. And of course, a lot of testing was done, and certain structures were built. So what I bring to the world today is the science of persona and image management. And that's how also the title of image scientist comes in, apart from the invention I discussed earlier. So, okay, I think that's enough about what I had to say about me and the research. Now, today's topic, we're talking of reinvent yourself to being limitless. And I want to thank Senela one more time for setting the stage beautifully, because some of the things that she said were very, very imperative and absolutely true. So I'm going to be talking about persona and image management, as I said, the core building blocks, as well as how you can look at trying to reinvent and reboot yourself. So now let's talk of the global scenario. Today, it's a dynamic scenario, a very competitive world, no doubt. I can say Darwin's theory is in full play. Survival of the fittest. I'm sure you agree with me. My generation never saw so much competition. I think today's generation, competition has spanned across all ages, all profiles, both genders. You can talk of any place, right from kids to people who are in their 60s. We see competition at every level, every profile. Now, what do you do when you have so much competition and everybody is as good as the other? There is so much of technical expertise that we see around. Then what is it that we can do to make sure that we have that winning edge in life? And that is where Prim comes in. Let me just give you an example. If I was sitting on the other side of an interview table and I had two candidates walk in, one probably who's had, let's say, about 75% marks and is a great communicator and brings out everything that he or she knows on the table while I'm asking questions, as against somebody who has, let's say, 82%, but has fairly poor communication skills, is not able to bring it forth, and probably is a little not so confident, if I may say. Who do you think I'm going to land up hiring, for example? Pretty much the first person. So what's going to happen here? We're not looking at your hardcore scores. We're not looking at your hardcore academic scores. We're looking at who is the right fit for my organization? Who is a person I don't need to invest into so much so that, you know, I waste or I have so much of a gestation time before this person is on the job. I don't want bench time. I want the person ready to take it on. So I would typically look at a person who's actually ready. And that's where your persona and image management comes in. As far as we are concerned today, I think most education institutions or universities don't really teach you persona and image management. And I know that for a fact because I teach at n number of universities across the world. So I do know that there is a huge gap. The good news is that at least today, IIM Bangalore was the first one that took that initiative. In fact, I co-authored a book called Entrepreneurship Education, Curriculum, Pedagogy, and Target Groups. It's a Springer publication with IIM Bangalore. And today, for the first time, Prim has been accepted as a management subject. So kudos to IIM Bangalore in India for having taken that initiative and understanding that this can be a great subject for not just entrepreneurs, but pretty much anyone who wants to get into the work stream. So now let's talk of Prim. Let me just tell you what exactly is Prim. I will not use my scientific definition, but I'll break it down for your easier understanding. So first thing is that when we're talking of Prim, it's an ongoing process, which means it's a continuous process. It is not something like a makeover. A lot of people do makeovers, which is an overnight, just getting ready of sorts, getting your hair cut and getting some new clothes on, and you think you're ready to go. Well, that's a makeover. Image management is not about a makeover. Prim is a whole cycle. It's a journey. So like I said, it's an ongoing process. It's a proactive one. So nothing will happen just like that. It's not going to happen by default. It will happen only when you take an action. So remember, it's an ongoing and a proactive process. It involves two things, evaluating as well as controlling. Now, what do you evaluate and control? You evaluate and control the impact you make or your appearance makes on yourself as well as on others. Let me explain this a little better. Evaluating, controlling, I guess, now. But we're talking evaluating and controlling the impact you make or your appearance makes on yourself as well as on others. So you may say, why on myself? Well, let me explain. I'll give an example. Let's say I go for a wedding, an Indian wedding. Now, I don't know how many of you have seen Indian weddings around, but there's a lot of pomp and splendor, like of course most weddings do, but there's a lot of glitterazzi, which means there are women who would wear saris and lehengas and beautiful silks and the gold and diamonds and all of that, and men in those beautiful sherwanis and, very, very ethnic wear, which is beautiful. And apart from that, we do a lot of decor. There's a lot that goes into the decor. Now, for some reason, I had to attend a friend's wedding, okay? And I didn't get the time or whatever be the reason. I didn't get the time and I landed up there for this wedding. Now, when I'm there at the wedding, I have landed up just like that in probably just a casual top and maybe some trousers or jeans or just something very casual because of whatever reasons I had. Now, when I reach there and I see all of this pomp and splendor, and I see all the women there dressed in those beautiful clothes and the men dressed immaculately, how do you think I'm going to feel? A little out of place? A little conscious? You're right. That's exactly how you would feel. A little out of place. Now let's turn the table. How will the others perceive me? When they look at me, they're probably going to say, didn't she know she was going to attend a wedding? They may not be rude to tell me that to my face, but between a few groups, they're probably going to just say, hey, just look how she's dressed. So it is impacting others too, right? Now, I've just given a very small example of clothing. It need not be only clothing. It's everything. I have to make it a point to tell you this, that we talk not about what you look like from the external being. Appearance, my dear friends, is everything about you. How you talk, how you like, how you're dressed, how are you coming across to people, how are you responding to what they ask you. All of that put together is how you appear to people. So it's extremely important that the message you make to people is well thought of. You cannot be with your guard down, or you cannot be thinking that I will make a message A at one point in time, I will make a message B at another time. Remember, every single message you make is making the perceiver believe something about you. Your image is an amalgamation of three core aspects: your self-image, your perceived image, that is of the perceiver, and the projected image, right? It's an amalgamation of all of that. So imagine if you are constantly going to be sending out mixed signals and mixed messages, you are confusing your perceiver. So let me tell you, let's say I want to be a person who wants to be known as a very, very, very strict disciplinarian, or let's say a no-nonsense person. Then every message that I have chosen to explicitly share with the world should share that in my clothing, in the way I communicate, in the way I respond to people, where I'm being totally no nonsense. But that doesn't mean you have to be, a very, very stern person. No, but the message you make around should be where silently, gently, the person understands that, okay, don't mess with her. She's not going to take nonsense, right? So everything, and this is completely your choice. What is your message is something you need to decide. What is it that you want to be known as? Do you want to be known as this fun-spirited, really, really friendly, energetic girl, or whatever? Then make sure that your message is the same kind. Now, half of the time we make an error because the message we want to make is not actually the error is not the one that we are actually projecting. Let's take a small example on social media today. I may be, like I just said, I may be wanting to, I'll quote the same example. Let's say that I want to be a no-nonsense person and I want to be looking like a strict, disciplined person. I won't say strict, but a disciplined person. But I go out there on social media and I make these funny photographs. Nowadays you see a lot of these photographs with the tongue out on one side, a wink, or making some funny faces and things like that. What have I done now? To my perceiver, I've confused him, because at some point in time in all my communication, I have shown myself as a fairly no-nonsense and a fairly disciplined person. And here I am going completely berserk and having no connection. So you might have a little bit of shakiness in that perceiver's mind, who starts saying, okay, do I believe part of her? Do I believe this part of her? Who is she really? Senela asked you a question earlier. Who are you? Time you started getting that sorted, right from inside to the outside. Ask yourself, who are you? And once you've done that exercise, and you will find a lot of exercises in that book that I've spoken of, Prim and Powerful, believe me, it is going to really shake you up to think a lot. Let me just take a sip of water. All right, it's rather warm in India. Okay, so you have to ensure that whatever it is, you do a little bit of soul searching, all right? It's very, very important. And nobody knows that better than you. This is not for, you to go and take advice from people. What do you think I should say? Should I be reflecting myself like this, or if there's anyone who can tell you that, it is probably the PIQ, of course, who will gauge you and get you back. Take advice from experts. Do not, if you're lost, do not go and ask your friends, what do you think my message should be? They will look at it from their own frame of thinking, right? So you have to be very careful with who you ask opinions from. It's very, very important. Okay, so let's move on. Now, how many out of you, firstly, I want to just know, because I want to know if everyone's engaged right now. So if all of you are with me on this, I want you to type in your chat box, PRIM, P-R-I-M. Let me see if all of you are engaged and we are ready to take on to the next level where I'm going to be telling you more about it. Okay, let's see. Pooja, Venya, Manjula. All right, good, good, good. Shell, Yashoda, Iris. That's a nice name. Promise. I never knew there's a name like Promise. Oh my God, I love your name. There's so much integrity in your name itself. Oh, wonderful. Okay, so I see you're all engaged. That's wonderful. Okay, so now I want to know. I'm moving on to the next point now, which is your core building blocks. Remember, your PRIM is an inside to out journey, which means the starting point is your inside. What is inside you? The 6 elements that are in PRIM has the most important element being, and that's what researchers in my studies, I have come up with those ISMs and MICMAC analysis. It showed how important yourself. It's a mental picture about yourself. And that's why it's very important to start loving yourself. How many of you get in the morning, look into the looking glass or the mirror in front of you, give yourself a flying kiss and say, I love you. Do you? Start doing it. Love yourself. It's a great way to start loving yourself. Accept all your imperfections in any which way that you have. Actually, those imperfections are what make you unique. I have a million imperfections and I love them. I own them up and I say them proudly to myself that I have this and this is what is my unique point. Each one of you is unique and you need to respect that and love yourself for it, right? So let's go now visit your inner self. I want to ask you a question. How many of you have realized that there are some things, some attributes of yours, some values, some core values of yours, which are very close to your heart? Have you ever thought about it? Have you ever tried to engage with them? Have you ever tried to consider how important they've been constantly in your life? Let me give you an example. I did that exercise for myself and I urge you to think of it. I'll tell you when to think first. Let me give you a little example. Okay, so when I came up with my little exercise of understanding what are my core values, I came up with my 6 top core values that are so dear to me, that I resonate with very strongly, and where I realized that almost my entire journey, if I go back in the last half century, from the time I probably started, looking around more consciously of my environment, I have realized that these 6 things have one way or the other constantly been in my life. And that's why I still continue to keep them so close to my heart. So let me share. And then I want you to all think of 3 top values of yours and then type them into the chat box later. First, let me take my example. My 6 top values, core values, are excellence, integrity, harmony, commitment, logic, and creativity. These are very close. Now, how did I come up with this? Let me just give you an example. Excellence, for example, I just shared, and probably if you ever go visit my social media handles, you will see my profile. So I'm known as a polymath. A polymath is a person who has expertise in multiple areas. So right from, like I mentioned, being a pilot, to an entrepreneur, to a creative director, I've made some films, to an author, like I've said, I've authored books, to being an educationist, and n number of things that I've done. Why is it that I was able to achieve so much? Probably because this value of mine was always about giving my best shot to everything I do. Excellence. It's always there. It's my top value in my life. Everything I do has to be to the best of my ability. I have to give my 100% to it. So guess what? If somebody engages with me, okay, hypothetically, if somebody engages with me and wants a real quick sham job, a sort of a mediocre sort of work with me, I'm going to be very disturbed because it is hitting against my core value, which is excellence. So I may not even do it. I might just say, no, 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 no. I'm not doing this because I don't have that sort of time to engage with you, because you're wanting something that's really, really fast and quick without me putting my mind all the perfection into it. So I probably won't be comfortable. And let's say on gunpoint, if I'm being told you have no choice, you have to do it, I'll do it, but I'll be unhappy from within, because I know somewhere down that core value has not been able to be fulfilled. So that's what I'm talking about, right? You get this example? Let me give you another example before you key in your 3 values. Integrity. I am an extremely straightforward person. I call a spade a spade. I am extremely patriotic. I'm extremely loyal. I'm very trustworthy. I don't like lying. Put me into a room full of liars and I will run a million miles. So you understand where it's coming from? These are your comfort elements. Any value that is close to your heart. Now, you could have a value like, let's say, your family. You could have any attribute. Sometimes people are very engaged. Everything they do is driven for family. So that could be a very close value to you. You may want to respect that. It may be honesty. It may be anything. It may be wealth. I mean, that's okay. That's your, value. You keep it close to your heart. But you need to identify today, firstly, what are your core values? So in your chat box, think for 5 seconds, and I want to see a flurry of at least 3 core values that you believe would be closest, that resound to you internally. Let's see it quickly. How many of you really have, okay, Pooja says compassion, courage, creativity. Lovely. Creative, confident, and calm, says Manjula. Okay. Sonali says caring, lifelong learner. Lovely. And of course, honesty. Promise, I didn't understand. Okay. How come everybody seems to be talking of creativity? That's wonderful. And excellence. Lovely. I need to see some more. So now you're thinking. I don't know how many of you ever thought about your core values. Now, the reason I made you think about your core values is because I want you to be happy in life. I want you to make the right choices in life. And I want you to realize that as you move along, and I want you to also go back probably in your past and realize how many important decisions you took in life where somewhere down the line, all of these things were getting controlled because your values were in play. That is the importance of these building blocks. Your core values are your building blocks. And it's extremely important that you honor them and respect them. You must own them with full passion and with love, because they are what you are today. And I see many more. Okay, there, Hansika says motivation, confidence, commitment. Lovely. Miriam, integrity, responsibility, and trust. Lovely. So I want all of you to give it a more serious thought as we move along. Even after this session, go back and think what are from 3, you can move to about 5 values that are really core to you, and think really deep. Don't just go impromptu, because this needs for you to understand for your journey ahead when you're talking of how you're going to engage with your PRIM. Another thing that's very important is your mindset. I think a lot of us talk positivity, but actually internally we haven't really molded ourselves on that premise, really. It's nice to speak because it's a good starting step, but it's also good to feel. You have to actually undergo a mindset change. And mindsets could be of various kinds. You could have a creative mindset, you could have a collaborative mindset, you could have maybe a learner mindset, you could have n number of mindsets. What is your mindset? Try and analyze. What are you driven towards? What is it that makes you give yourself a push so that you become proactive, so that you understand that I have to do this, and so on and so forth. But more importantly is, are you positive enough? Are you the kind that looks at life, takes on challenges in the right spirit and says, I'm ready to bounce back? It's very easy to buckle. You all know that. I think we've all gone past various challenges in life. For me, when a challenge comes and poses itself in my face, I'm happy because I treat it like my friend. I take it as a fantastic opportunity to improve myself, to evolve. And I think if we learn that, you will never feel buckled, because then it's always a win-win situation, right? You will never lose because you're taking that challenge as your friend, and you should invite such challenges because that's actually helping you. You know, when people, that's why I also say when you have a company of people and people are always, doing psycho fancy around you, that's not the healthiest company you want to be in. You want to be in that company where people call a spade, where people have the guts to come and tell you straight on that, look, this is a mess as far as you're concerned. You know, you don't know how to do this correctly. And I think you would really want to consider improving on this. Take that person as your friend, seriously, because he's given you an opportunity to evolve. Most of us feel very nice and comfortable and happy because we hear such lovely compliments coming our way. While that's great, but don't feel too good about only doing that. It's very, very important to keep growing. Okay, so what I'm talking of is encoding yourself in the right manner, making sure all negative thoughts and all thoughts that discharge your batteries have to be thrown into a trash can. You have to ensure your battery is charged. You have to be on a self-ignition mode and ensure that you get yourself to be always positively driven and take on everything in life with the right and positive spirit. Okay? And of course, most importantly, you must give up. You're shocked? Why did I say give up? Yes, I'm saying that again. You must give up. Now I'll tell you the secret. Why did I say give up? You must give up on having negative thoughts. You must give up on self-doubt. You must give up on procrastination. You must give up on anything that holds you back and adds to your baggage. And only when you give up, that's when you will actually have your breakthrough in life. So in that perspective, get ready to give up. Okay? This is probably an evening, evening, morning, I don't know, whichever country you are, but this is probably that defined moment in your life when Senela organized me to come and talk to you. And probably you may just be ready to kind of rethink your journey ahead. It's never too late. If you haven't done something in your life, there's always a good time. You may not have had a great starting point. You can't revisit your journey backwards, but you can always start now and have a great ending, isn't it? So this is what your building block is all about. Make sure you have your ammunition ready for your journey ahead, because it's a great way to start your journey in that manner. How many of you want to understand a little better, or how many of you are interested in me sharing 3 secrets of how you can make a great impact? 3 secrets. If you're interested, say I am, or me, whatever. Okay, great. So everyone is excited. I can see that energy. That's wonderful. All right. So now that all of you are very, very keen on knowing the 3 secrets to making a great impact, let me share the ABC of those secrets. A, appearance, which is talking about your clothing and your grooming. B, which is your behavior, which comes out of your inner self, right? Because your inner thoughts always come out as actions and they convert into the way you deal with people. So your behavior, your etiquette, and your self-concept, all of this comes as your B. Your communication, be it your verbal or your non-verbal. So these are your 3 strongest hacks in terms of understanding that if you use these 3 ABCs, you have got yourself sorted in terms of impact. Of course, there's a lot that you can do. Yes, absolutely, Venya. Appearance, behavior, and communication. Thank you for sharing it with everyone. So these are the 3 secrets to ensure that you make an impact wherever you go, not just on yourself, but on every person you interact with. Okay, so I'm going to give you a small, quick synopsis on all of these things that I've just mentioned, because I know we're short on time in any case, but regardless, it's so much. There is such a big wide world on all of these 6. It's impossible to share everything, but quick hacks on making sure that you get it right. But let me tell you a super hack before I do that. Your super hack to get it right is one word, and that is authenticity. Always remember, your super hack to prim is one word, and that is authenticity. If you are your authentic self, you're pretty much sorted to take the next few steps. But if you're not authentic, it's time to relook at yourself and reinvent yourself. Okay? So you are going to be reinventing yourself first when you tell yourself, I'm happy the way I am. Like I shared, the flying kiss with you, right? Remember, loving yourself, accepting yourself the way you are, understanding that you're unique and probably even celebrating your uniqueness. Why not? And moving your journey as an authentic representation of yourself. Let me give you a small example. I don't know how many of you watch Bollywood, but let me just quote it as an example because probably some of you may have known of the star. So let's say I want to be like Kareena Kapoor. Okay, just again, hypothetically, I've just quoted her name. She's a well-known Bollywood star. Now, for some reason, I want to be like Kareena Kapoor. So I walk into a mall and I pick up, brands she wears. I go and get my hairstyle like how she does it. I wear footwear like what she does. I wear, I do my makeup the way she does. Do I become Kareena Kapoor by doing all of this? No, of course not. I can't be Kareena Kapoor. Why? Because this inner self inside me is all about Kuiljeit Uppaal. My mind is all about Kuiljeit Uppaal. I may have superficially dressed myself like someone else, but that doesn't make me someone else. So the first hack, like I said, and the super hack of Prim is authenticity. It's good to get inspired by people. I know I have a whole bunch of followers, and I know that I inspire them time and again, which is fine. But as long as they don't clone me, it would trouble me if they start cloning me. In fact, that's the first time I'm going to tell them that don't clone me. Your authentic being is most important, and you need to stick with your own authenticity. So when it comes to dressing, for example, a lot of people keep asking me questions like, I have to buy these brands. Which brands do you recommend? And I always say, you know what? Don't go by brands. Seriously, it doesn't matter. You may wear a Marks and Spencer or a Calvin Klein or even a home-stitched garment. What's more important is the fitting. What's more important is the dignity with which you carry it. Our father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, in India, he's well known, I think, as an international figure. He always spoke of the mind, body, and soul connect. And that's what Prim is all about, where they're all in conjunction with each other. Whatever you wear, you may be wearing the simplest of khadis. You may be wearing the simplest of, okay, there's something that's happening to the Zoom screen. All right. You may be wearing the simplest of khadis or simplest of cottons, but that doesn't matter. You may still carry it off with dignity and have a fantastic impression that you create on people. So don't follow brands blindly, and don't have to think that when I do my image, I have to spend $1 million. No, you don't. You can be fairly sorted because that's not image management, that's makeover. Remember, Prim is nothing to do with makeover. It's an ongoing, lifelong process. The way you breathe, right? You breathe. Do you tell yourself, okay, now breathe, now stop? Do you do that? No, it's an ongoing process. It's a subconscious process. Prim is a subconscious process, and you have to build it in that manner, slowly and steadily, that you start breathing Prim in the same way like you breathe air. That's when you will realize that now it's a part of you. And you are one of the most confident rock stars around, who can carry off any situation with ample dexterity and ample amount of ease, be it whatever situation. That's what you have to work towards. And believe me, it's very, very achievable for pretty much anybody on this planet, as long as you have a will to make a difference to that. Okay, so coming to some more concepts. When we're talking of grooming, of course, we're looking at how presentable you are, how neat you are, how hygienic you are. Do you ensure that you have your skin and your hair, hairstyle, all of that sorted, and you don't look like a mess when you're talking to people? These are small little things. And I think our parents have taught us this. Some of us tend to get a little casual about it. When we're talking of clothing, understand that every occasion demands a certain dress. You don't wear clothes you wear to bed. You don't wear the same to work, right? So there has to be a certain appropriateness that you bring in your lifestyle. So just ensure that you have all of that sorted. In terms of, let's say, etiquette. Now, has up in the last decade or so, because it's a global world today, and we find people engaging from across hemispheres. And so it's very important to understand multicultural etiquette. It's very, very important because it also impacts your work. So not just that, and also the social niceties that I think most of us tend to forget sometimes. As kids, when somebody gave us a little toffee when we were toddlers, or when we were little kids of, let's say, 3 or 4 years of age, we found our parents telling us, did you say thank you to that aunt or uncle, whoever gave you that? And we were like, yes, thank you, uncle, thank you, auntie. But as life goes by and we get older, sometimes we tend to forget a few Many of us remember, some of us forget. So we need to keep in mind certain niceties. How at work do you introduce yourself? What kind of body language is needed in terms of communicating? What is the kind of voice? How do you impact by using your voice in the best manner? These are all things that involve a lot of integrated learning, of course, but you must know that it comes as part of PRIM and how you build yourself. What sort of clarity you give to your speech when you speak? Do you have a mother tongue influence when you speak? In such a way that probably a person who's alien to your mother tongue is not able to understand the way you speak. Maybe you need to do something about that. So these are areas which you need to watch out. How do you use your voice? And how do you create an impact using your voice? There could be a number of things when it comes to your verbal skills and your non-verbal skills. How is your posture? What are the kind of gestures you use? What sort of eye contact do you have? A number of things again in that whole world of non-verbal communication. And we know that sometimes silently also we are communicating, right? In fact, most of the time, this is a far more stronger domain. If you ask me a question, let's say hypothetically someday, and you say, how are you? And I say, I'm okay. Do I look okay? No, I don't, right? So my body is hanging, my head is hanging to one side, shoulders are drooped down. A lot of us give a lot of meaning out of what we see. And that research has gone to prove. So body language is a very important part of this. And we all need to understand that. So these are small little ways where if you have not done things about it, time to reinvent and reboot your entire system so that ahead your journey becomes a little more pleasurable. And like I said earlier, you need to think that this is just the start. It's not even the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more in this whole journey ahead. And of course, you need to follow up. And like I said, probably you all need to, the ones who are very, very keen on making that evolution towards being a better version of yourself or the best, most powerful version of yourself, you need to keep in track and keep ensuring that you keep asking me questions. I think we're moving into a question and answer session time, I guess. So I'm leaving the floor open now to questions from the little that I've shared. Can we have questions?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Kuiljeit. That was lovely. I'm going to.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much. So, something you said about authenticity, I think that's wonderful because, a lot of, if you look at just my own life, I've spoken in stages where there were more than 20,000 people. I'm talking about global, international, massive gatherings. I've addressed audiences at the World Bank. I've been invited to speak, to address teams from the World Bank, from the United Nations. Now, how did a middle-aged, South Asian, short, small-made, prim and proper, so to speak, young person like me achieve all these things? Surely it's the personal brand. And I love how Dr. Kuiljeit reinforced even the authenticity factor. That's so important. And, a lot of what we do, even at Women Empowered Global, it's about the values, identifying the goals, and then auditing yourself where you are now and where you want to go. So I just want to encourage everybody, start with your values, because like Helen Keller said, if you have, the only thing worse than being blind is not having vision. So work on that, and there's so much more I can support you with. Reach out to us and we can take it at a one-on-one level.